Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this here tropical update for October 7th. Tropical Storm Julia is now formed from potential Tropical Cyclone 13 as expected. As we can see here, the highest winds are off to the north of the center of the storm, and it does have that well-defined center as noted by those orange dots in the center of the screen, decreasing pressure 1003 down to 1001 now as it makes its way away from the Colombian Peninsula here towards Nicaragua later down the line. As we can see here on this graphic, it's the only thing to talk about in the Atlantic. Everything else, just a loose, ragged swirl. We can see the remnants of Tropical Depression 13 out here in the Central Atlantic today. And here is Julia, of course, with a large envelope of convection, a well-defined center making its way towards Nicaragua, where heavy rain will be the main concern, likely in excess of a foot in areas, as well as storm surge 4 to 6 feet along the immediate coast north of where it makes landfall. This is kind of what we're dealing with, the Central American storm for sure. But down the line, where exactly this thing goes, how strong it gets, all questions up for debate, and that's what we'll talk about today. Here's the zoomed in view of Julia, like I mentioned, starting to look healthy, starting to look like a tropical storm properly now, and really getting its act together as it's expected to do. The Hurricane Center expecting it to rapidly intensify into a hurricane by this weekend, likely by tomorrow evening, and making landfall in Nicaragua as a Category 1, maybe even a Category 2 hurricane on Sunday morning. So again, that's what we're expecting now. Hurricane watch in effect for most of the coast of Nicaragua, as well as a tropical storm watch and for a bit of Honduras. The three islands, San Andres, Providencia, and Santa Catalina, are now under a hurricane warning due to this storm. Rain is going to be the main concern. We also have storm surge, of course, and winds to hurricane force, but those are kind of our main aspects. Rainfall is the biggest concern in Central America almost all the time. Where this storm goes down the line is kind of up for debate. As you can kind of see from the cone, I say kinda because the Hurricane Center keeps tracking this through 5 days, even though it mentions in its discussion that it may dissipate. I'll talk about that more here in a bit when we talk about the models. Here is the most likely time of arrival for tropical storm force winds. As I mentioned yesterday, Saturday is going to be the day that Central America receives those tropical storm force winds for the first time, and then Honduras later on as we head into Sunday, around the time, as it's making landfall in Nicaragua. This is not a massive storm. If we go back, I think, look at the wind field of the tropical storm force winds. It's nothing like Fiona or Ian in terms of the wind field on this storm, which is a good thing, but it's still going to be in all likelihood a Category 1 hurricane. Now, we do have a few options on where it goes after landfall. Again, yesterday it was 3 days away. Today it is 2 days away, as you can see by 48 hours right there on the Nicaraguan coastline. From there, the question is what happens? Does it dissipate heading into these mountains? Does it kind of take this more northern track and still feed off of the warm waters of the Caribbean Sea and later on potentially even the Gulf of Mexico? Or does it kind of just make its way over all of this land and not really developing much, perhaps even dissipating in the meantime? And does it turn north into the Gulf? And it may not be a tropical cyclone at this point, but it could still have that low-level center and could turn north into the Gulf, then become a tropical cyclone again, or a completely new tropical cyclone completely. All possibilities here. So our friends in Mexico down here really need to be keeping an eye on the future of Julia, or if it's not Julia at that point, it might have a new name. Again, if the low-level center is gone, it gets a new name. We'll see what happens. The other possibility is, of course, it goes into the Pacific where it forms into likely a new storm, could stay the same. Again, it's kind of anybody's guess at this point in time. Here's the European ensembles, a few thoughts, and I have kind of the three major schools of thought here. There's really only two major ones. The third one's kind of probably not going to happen. Thought process one, as it makes landfall in Central America, goes into south of El Salvador and continues as a tropical cyclone or reforms into a new tropical cyclone, depending on if the low-level center makes it past all of Nicaragua. And option two is it makes landfall in central Nicaragua, then turns to the north over Honduras, perhaps even coming back out over the Caribbean Sea, then through Guatemala, Belize, and Mexico, making its way into the Gulf of Mexico. Option 3 is outlandish, but I guess it's possible because a few models show it both on this slide here. Well, I guess maybe nobody, well, maybe a few, maybe like that yellow model kind of. On this one and in the GFS, the idea is that the storm comes across Nicaragua in the central, makes its way into the Pacific, and then turns up north. And then it goes into the Gulf, kind of cutting through this small little piece of land here in Mexico. And again, at any point it crosses land, it could become a non-tropical cyclone again. So it could have one name here, die, get another name here, die, and get another name in the Gulf. These are all possibilities of what could happen. So again, kind of a number of ideas here. In any case, Central America going to get a lot of rain from this one. How many storms form out of Julia or its remnants or whatever is up for debate, and we really won't know until the future happens. So at this point, it's kind of anybody's guess. Could we see something in the southern Gulf of Mexico? It's certainly possible. There is a sustained signal that we have something down in there. Whether or not it happens, or if the Eastern Pacific takes all of the energy and doesn't leave much for the southern Gulf of Mexico to form anything, time will tell. So, or vice versa. So, anything could really happen here with Julia. But what we do know is that strong rains, heavy rains and strong winds probably would be the way to phrase that, is likely over Nicaragua, where it will make landfall as a hurricane in about 2 days' time. That's all for now. Chris, you can go with the Catholic Media.